you're not the center of people's universe. People are busy. They may have the best intentions to show up to your live event, but they forgot about it because you didn't remind them that it was happening. When we host live events, we can't take things like that personally. And we have to remember that the responsibility of reminders are on who? On us. Today, we're going to learn about the different types of newsletters, and we're going to go back and forth between slides and me actually showing you some stuff on LinkedIn, because it's hard to just show the slides because some of the newsletters are so long and there's so much to mention within the newsletter. But there's really three types of LinkedIn newsletter editions, or articles, we'll say, because we know that it's just an article within the one newsletter that we have seen, and there's different styles within each one. The first main type of LinkedIn article within your newsletter is going to be a long form article that's educational. I know what you're thinking, but I don't like to read long articles. Why would I create such a long article if I don't like to read long articles? And what we continue to find is that a lot of the beliefs that some people will tell themselves, like, hey, my audience doesn't read long articles, they're CEOs, or my audience doesn't like long articles because I don't like long articles, or publishing more than once a week would completely turn off my audience. I would advise that before you take any of those stories that you tell yourself for rule of law, that you actually try to prove that theory to yourself. And the way that you would prove this wrong would be to publish short versus long, informational versus inspiring, and see which one does best on the analytics. And we'll get into that. But I want you to have an open mind as we go into these different types, because we're just showing you what has worked best, not just for ourselves, but for hundreds of clients that we have served. The purpose of these type of articles is to, number one, prove your expertise. It's to prove that you're an expert. It's to have a helpful resource on your LinkedIn profile for a long time to come. It's to rank on search engines like Google and Bing, and we'll get into that. And we'll show you examples of newsletters of our own that have already ranked and of clients that have ranked. And it could potentially lead to an educational video, which we'll also get into towards the end. Now, an example of this is our client, Jonathan. Is Descript Underlord the best screen recorder for Mac and PC? And there's a lot to learn here. Number one, his thumbnail. It looks professional, it gets attention. Number two, he's answering one specific question. And I want you to put that in your notes. One specific question. And then I want you to ask yourself, how many one-pointed questions do your top clients ask you on a monthly basis? If you put anything 4 or more, then you should have weekly newsletters. We don't necessarily want to go broad, we want to go pointed. He starts with a personal, for years I've struggled to find the perfect screen recording software. My biggest issue has always been rendering, which is it takes forever for it to download and process and all that stuff. And then he shares what he's used, and then he shares what he's going to talk about, Descript. Now for Jonathan, he's leading them to an educational video on his YouTube, but remember, that's his goal. One of his goals is to leverage LinkedIn to grow his YouTube, and so he has the YouTube video embedded. He goes into why Descript saves time, and as you can see, there's headers or H2s, but this makes it readable. Also for his points, he bolds, and then he leads to a different resource, which is before diving into the demo, I had a problem with the green screen. And what he does is he strategically then links an article that he has created about green screen. He points to tests, so on and so forth. So for his audience, this is pretty educational, and I want to see the video because Descript is the software tool. So naturally, this is going to intrigue my curiosity, but I'm a visual learner. So am I more or less likely to then watch the video? I'm going to click on the video. He already sold me with why it's important. I need to see it. When people say, should I put a video in my LinkedIn newsletter? It depends. Is the video going to add seasoning to the context of the newsletter? Or is the video going to distract from the main context of the newsletter? And then at the end, he has get his bestseller, and that is a lead gen thing. And that's how he grows his email list. There's another rule that I want you to follow. We've learned 3 major things already. Number 1, answer one specific question at a time. Number 2, only add a video if it's going to add context to the content of your newsletter. If it's a random video that's going to distract, then you're just messing around. The third thing is that I don't care who you are. I don't even care if you don't have an offer yet. You don't know who your clients are yet. Let's say you're the one person on this training that's not an entrepreneur. I don't care what it is. Listen to what I'm saying. Every single one of your newsletters should include a call to action at the end. I can't tell you how many people, when they start with us, they may be like, oh yeah, I've written 5 LinkedIn newsletters, but nothing has happened. No one has done anything. Well, I go to those 5 newsletters and there's not a call to action. That is the golden rule of newsletters. The next thing here, I'll show you another example. Another way that you could do it is to embed a video from LinkedIn in the article. 3 powerful LinkedIn strategies for entrepreneurs. Pay close attention and get your notebook because this is brand new. About a month ago, when I would send a LinkedIn newsletter and it would reach people's inboxes, there was no character limit. So the entire article would show in the email. Now, the entire article does not show in the email. And I think it's about 1,300 characters that will show. So if you only put your call to action at the end of the newsletter, are they going to see it in the email? No. Unless your newsletter is just a short little announcement, they're not going to be able to see it because it's going to be too far down. What you want to start doing is strategically leading them to your call to action a little bit sooner if you can. One way to do this is to leverage video events on LinkedIn, but I would only do this if you have evidence of being successful with video events and you know what you're doing. Because if not, you may just lead them to a video event that's not going to lead to any type of conversion. As an entrepreneur, and then I lead them to this. Now, there's 2 ways to add a video to your LinkedIn article and all. Now, if I edit this, what most people will do is they'll embed it. They'll take this and then they'll embed the live video events. But as you could see, it looks ugly. What I do is I just take a screenshot from the live video events and then I make it so when they click it, or I just say, click here, because it's easier. A lot of the times, if you embed it, people won't necessarily know that they need to click there. So be careful. And then what am I talking about? I'm talking about 3 points. And I just recap the 3 points that I had in my live video, which is LinkedIn newsletters, short videos on LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn live video events, and then PS. And you could have a signature if you want. That's more of a personal preference. But the main thing to get here is that there's subheadings, it's readable, there's bullet points, there's an image of the video events, and I'm leading them to the next step pretty quickly. Now, you don't need video in your LinkedIn newsletters. So I'll show you a couple examples of that, like Maria. Maria is a client of ours. If you don't know Maria, I helped her grow from 2,000 connections on LinkedIn to she has over 200,000 followers now. She reached her first 100,000 followers in 5 months working together, and she's still growing today. Here, Maria has her thumbnail, and then this is very important because she knows her audience. The main thing to take away from this is, even if you follow what I'm going to share with you today, if you don't know what to write for your specific audience, then it will fall flat anyway. Maria has an advantage because she knows exactly what her audience wants, and she really gets to know her clients. She knows that all of her clients are introverted leaders and that they may feel a certain way about having a disadvantage against extroverted leaders. And she gets a lot of questions about this. So she's turning it into a newsletter. Here she has the intro, the quiet strength of introversion. She has a photo, this, leveraging your listening skills, And then in conclusion, your thoughtful approach, in case you'd like someone on your side, send me a DM. You don't always need to have a video. Let's do another one. Malia's a client of ours. She's crushing it. Her origin story just went mini viral, but this is an informational article of hers. So crush your mid-year review, a step-by-step guide. And she has this. And then what does she have? She has a next step thing here for her ebook. Get your ebook. And then she continues. She's doing good. I'm proud of her. Next steps. She has it even before the end, and she's learning. And then why is this important? She chose a topic that women in STEM, high performance women in STEM, their mid-year review is very important. So what we could learn from this topic is timeliness. And that has a lot to do with it. So let's say I know people who are in business where they only close business between October and December, especially a lot of health insurance people, and they need to start revving up now, especially now. What you do the next 90 days will really determine how you end your year and start your next year. The next type of newsletter is what I would call to inspire. It tends to be a little bit shorter, but not necessarily always. On one hand, we have you sharing your helpful strategies, your experiences, the things you know that clients come to you and ask you about, that they pay you for. So that is directly related to what they pay you for. The other part of this is knowing who you serve and maybe the type of inspiration that they may need. The purpose of these types of articles are to inspire people, to build an emotional connection, to show people that you are more than your expertise and or that you are more than your wins. I'll give you an example. This is Vlada. She's a client of ours, and she exited her startup earlier this year for 8 figures, and she already started her next business. But in this one, she gets a little bit more personal because she's basically sharing the story of how she almost lost the ability to exit her business because of an M&A deal that almost went bad. This was a little bit more vulnerable for her, but by sharing this, she's helping entrepreneurs that are where she once was. Maybe they have some M&A deals on the table and they're a little bit naive to that industry, and maybe she could potentially save their business. So it's not always about sharing the upside, it's about sharing maybe a little bit of past struggles, but the past struggles that you share need to be relevant to what your audience may be experiencing. And this is where people go wrong. So if I tell you that one time I went to the hospital because I hit my hand with the hammer, you're not going to care. You're going to be like, what does that have to do with my business? But if I share a story about all the times that I went live and then I figured it out, that's going to probably resonate with you more because you want to go live. You're not going to care that I hit my hand with a hammer because that has nothing to do with what you want to learn from me. So you have to understand what you should share and who your audience is and what they value even outside of what it is that they pay you for. One of the things with our audience is that they value family. And even if their children are grown up, they still value their grandchildren and the fact that their children were once so close to them. What I'm sharing here is that one of the things that I learned from a YouTube creator was that you should give your kid a 30-second hug. And if I could just share something and have someone maybe hug their kid for 30 seconds, who do they think of? Who do they associate that positive experience with? Me. When you're sharing inspiration, I want you to get into the mindset, like, I'm not writing this particular article to convert. I'm writing this particular article for awareness, for emotional connection. And for a lot of the times, people who may not be my target audience, but may benefit from my content personally, when they know someone that wants to grow on LinkedIn, are they less or more likely to say, hey, go to Shanee's thing? A lot more. So one of the biggest ignored benefits of LinkedIn is that 4 out of 5 people on the platform are decision makers, and decision makers hang out with decision makers. So even if someone is following your newsletter or loves your content that isn't directly maybe a client or a prospect, they could always share it with someone that is. Then this one. So a lot of people love this one. And another reason why we do this is testing. You don't know what your audience likes, both educational style and inspirational style, unless you just test a couple things. When I shared this one, people loved it. The third style, you could also make the personal one long. It doesn't have to be short. They just tend to be shorter. So the third style is one that I'm going to show you live right now. It's an email style. Now, remember, when you publish a LinkedIn article within your newsletter, what happens? It gets published as an article on your LinkedIn, and then it gets sent as an email. What you could do is leverage the LinkedIn newsletter to distribute reminders for your live events, or even let them know that it's happening when you create it. A lot of the times when people are like, how do I get more people to attend my live? It's a threefold problem. The first problem is that you need to post more. Even if you have a ton of connections, if you're not top of mind, it's being top of mind is like a subconscious trigger to increase attendance. The second thing is that you're not the center of people's universe. People are busy. They may have the best intentions to show up to your live event, but they forgot about it because you didn't remind them that it was happening. When we host live events, we can't take things like that personally. And we have to remember that the responsibility of reminders are on who? On us. One of the ways that we can do our duty for that responsibility is to actually remind people and to let them know that the event even exists. The reason why doing this with LinkedIn newsletters is so powerful is because when you invite people through your event on LinkedIn, you can only invite your first degree connections. That event invite feature will only tap into your first degree connections. But as you are already probably experiencing on your LinkedIn newsletter subscriber list, there will be a lot of your subscribers on your LinkedIn newsletter that are second and third degree connections. You would not be able to directly invite them through the event feature. What LinkedIn newsletters does is that it closes that gap. Let's pretend that I'm hosting an event tomorrow. We could say mastering live events on LinkedIn invitation. And then dear reader, you could do whatever you want. And I would just naturally ask you when people are like, well, what do I write? Well, how would you actually invite them? If you had to say it on the phone, how would you invite them? I wanted to let you know that I'm hosting an event to teach entrepreneurs how to go live on LinkedIn and then repurpose their live for short videos. This event will be on July, we'll just make something up, 14th at 9 a.m. ET. Click here to attend. When you do LinkedIn, we'll send you an email confirmation. Thanks, Shanee. It does not have to be your next dissertation. And then you could click this and pretend this is blue with the event link to attend, and then put a thumbnail. And if I were to send that now, all of my subscribers would get it in their email. Now, just because you publish a newsletter that was received in the emails doesn't mean that you can't delete it as an article. And I'll show you an example. I sent one this morning that was like, hey, come to this event. It's been received as an email, but what I could do is I could go to my posts, because the value of an email style newsletter is that it's short, it's sweet, and it's more in a shorter amount of time. I'm not going to expect this invitation to rank on Google. And if a follower of mine starts following me and starts looking at the resources of my newsletter in a month, it's going to be irrelevant. You don't want short-timed, irrelevant things that are not going to be relevant in a month to be on your library. So then I just click this and then delete article and post, and then now it's not on my library, but it was still received in the emails. The second type of newsletter to write for distribution is like event starts in 2 hours. And this really depends on your preference. People are like, what's the right time? I mean, you have to test, but you could do 2 hours, 4 hours, one day, test with your audience. Dear reader, the event XYZ starts in 2 hours. I will teach you X, Y, Z. Click here to attend. Thanks. Now I have just increased my attendance rate because even people that did click attend, maybe they forgot. So now at least they get a direct email on my behalf for my LinkedIn newsletter. And then after the live event, if it's going to be a LinkedIn video event, which is something that I highly recommend, you will be able to have replays. It's not just about the people that show up live, it's about the replay viewers. And a large percentage of your audience may be replay viewers, especially in the beginning. If you want more replay viewers, then just distribute the replay. So then it could be replay of Master LinkedIn Live events. Dear reader, just use your style. Here is the replay of XYZ events where I taught about XYZ. Click here to watch the replay. That is the other way we understand email style to distribute the LinkedIn live events. Leverage them, get more people to your live events. We talked about why it's important. You can do this by sending out an email when you create the event. So once you create the event, you want to distribute it. Ideally, you want at least a week or two between time of creation to time of event, a few hours before to increase show up rate, and a few hours or one day after to increase the replay views. But what we have continued to find over and over and over again is that the people who have the most success on LinkedIn that we work with, and the people who just position themselves as thought leaders and also convert, and just it compounds all together. And based on our own personal experience, are those people that use both LinkedIn events and LinkedIn newsletters and do it consistently. And I'll explain why this is so powerful, especially if you have a few thousand connections already on LinkedIn. It's because you're basically leveraging a strategy that does not require the algorithm. If you only post, a lot of the feed posting is for growth, for initial growth, for your first whatever connections to get top of mind. And I'm not saying that that's not important. But what I am saying is that if you have a few thousand connections, the lowest hanging fruit is to use both of these tools together. Because if I have a few thousand connections on LinkedIn, I don't need the algorithm to invite 1,000 plus people every single week to my live events. I also don't need the algorithm to get those subscribers on my newsletter to open their emails. The lowest hanging fruit with people that I see is like, if they're sitting on thousands of connections and they're putting a lot of effort or potentially no effort into posts because they may have been disillusioned, but they're not leveraging these two tools, and it just doesn't make any logical sense to me. Because where else could you get upwards of 1,000 people to your live event? Because you could send 4,000 plus connection invites to your live event every single month. So if you send 4,000, you should get at least 1,000 live. Non-algorithm dependent. Now, if you only do LinkedIn newsletters, the downside is that for a lot of your competitors, it's easier to do text than to do video, than to go live. What's happening is that if you only do text-based LinkedIn newsletters, unless they are exceptional, unless you're adding real nuance, experience, context, unless you are sharing things that are new, different, 10 times better than what everyone else in your niche is sharing, then it could fall flat. Because when I look at a newsletter now, the first thing my brain is doing is this chat GPT only? In the ever-evolving landscape of digital marketing, if I see that phrase again, I'm going to scream. It's like in the ever-changing marketing world. It's like the same sentence. So if it's only that, then my brain goes, oh, this person has no idea what they're talking about. They're just using ChatGPT. But if there's no nuance, no context, if I can't see your real person, if I can't have a sense of your personality, then it may not be enough. You have more leverage if you do both, because you could reach the people who love the written word and reach them in their emails, and then have substance and relative substance. If I was like, this is how you grow your live events, and then I put a video about 10 ways to get inspired, it doesn't match. I see people do that a lot too. The video has to add seasoning to that specific article. Your competition is probably not going live, or if they are, they're doing it inconsistently and they're not doing it well. So you have more leverage and people can actually get a sense of who you are. Like I said, they get a sense of your energy, and it becomes much easier to produce LinkedIn newsletters when you go live, even just once or twice a month. And you may say, well, Shanee, how? How does it make it easier? Well, if I went live, let's say for 30 minutes, the recording gives me video. The recording also gives me a transcript. I have 30 minutes of Shanee's words, Shanee's natural language style. And when I'm speaking, I probably share examples more naturally. It's natural language. I talk more like myself, so on and so forth. So I have that. Now, let's say that I just went live and I said, here's 3 ways to master LinkedIn newsletters in 2024. If I just had that one live, the first newsletter of that month could be an overall synopsis of that live. The second week could just focus on the first thing that I talked about. The third week could focus on the second thing. The fourth week could focus on the third thing. And that's without any of the invited ones, the email style ones. This is just informational. But if you don't have this, then you don't have it to leverage. And then you better be a great writer and you better add a lot of nuance and context to your articles, or it's just going to fall flat. Because remember, the whole point of doing this is if I should read it and I should know, oh, this person knows what they're talking about. This isn't just another generic tip list or whatever. And I'll only be able to know that if either the writing itself is superior or if it has a resource with it, like a video. What is the real secret? People ask me this all the time. The real secret is this. It's data. When you publish consistently, you'll get data back. It'll have these on LinkedIn newsletters analytics. It'll show little heartbeats. How did your newsletters do? Which one do they like the best? For some reason, I think July 8th, people really love that one. And you'll start to see what I call outliers. And this is why when I work with clients, I drill consistently. The first 12 weeks, you are going to be publishing every week. You're going to be going live every week. Why? Because if you only do it once a month or every other week, it's going to take us 1,000,000 years to get back your data and to learn what it is that your audience wants more of from you. And this is something that so many coaches, small business owners, they really do underestimate. They make a lot of decisions based on feeling. And I think there's space for making decisions. I think intuition is very important, but that can't be every decision. And you can't get the data that you need from testing what your audience really wants from you, what works best for your personal brand, so on and so forth, if you don't put in the reps. All right, everyone. So thank you for joining today. Ciao.